can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNOTV at 402.
The 9th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Sunday at 5 p.m.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news. Once again, from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome once again to UNO. The Medicare prescription drug plan coverage begins January 1st. It is a little complicated to say the least, and it's downright overwhelming for probably a good chunk of the 250,000 Nebraskans who are on Medicare and faced with finding the right plan for them. This week my guests are very interested in and maybe helping you not worry, or maybe even encouraging to help you to help your parents or your aunt or whatever wade through this. Robin Swanek is with AARP Nebraska. She is the Assistant State Director of Community Outreach. She formerly was with the Nebraska Senior Health Insurance Program in Lincoln, which is under the Department of Insurance. Amy McKim is with Volunteers Intervening for Equity. She is the Executive Director here in Omaha. They are also a contractee for that insurance program to help seniors muddle through this. And Gil Savory is a retired UNL journalism professor who was asked by the Lincoln Journal-Star, he and his wife, to sort of muddle through this program and write about it. And they're almost through. Is that right, Gil? You're not
almost.
Quite,
one more to go.
One more part to go. And you can check that out online if you want to see what Avril and Gil went through. But let's start here on the people that have probably been watching this whole thing since it became law. Phase 1, which we're in right now, that the seniors were a little scared about. They seem to, most of them, get through that. Is this more complicated, more difficult, more scary, more overwhelming? That's all the bad words I'll use for this show.
There's a lot to the program, a lot more, I think, than we expected, especially with the different coordinated parts that are involved. This did start back in 2003 when the Medicare Modernization Act was signed, and it started out with a prescription drug discount card.
Right.
In Nebraska, we had less than 15% of our Medicare population sign up for it. So this year, when it starts moving us towards the Part D enrollment, we've been very active and busy in getting a lot of professionals and organizations and volunteers educated on what this program's all about, so we can help people move through this process, as in Gil, with finding out which is the best card or the best prescription plan out there for him.
Now, you said only 15% of Medicare eligible took up the discount card.
Correct.
Now, have you been able to ascertain, I know I don't want to look back, we need to look ahead, but ascertain why only 15%?
I know a lot of the people that we worked with and talked to about the program, you know, it had to do with the confusion factor. You know, a lot of people just weren't sure what to do and what was the right answer, so they did nothing. Unfortunately, this time around, the people who do that, who aren't sure what to do and choose to do nothing, are going to pay a very high price for making that decision to do nothing. So it was definitely confusion, but a lot of people just felt like it wasn't going to do them any good. You know, there was so much talk about you're not going to save much money, it's not going to make that big of a difference. And people just really bought into that.
Well, let's talk to someone who's in the age bracket. Did you and your wife get the go through the original
We
first
did,
process?
and I can't give you a percentage, but it was very much worthwhile. And so we were really happy that we got the discount card. And of course, it's good until what, May of 2006. So we have a little time to work here on the new program.
But you have spent some time on it.
Oh yes, we tried to educate ourselves. My wife is a detail person. Actually, she did more research and she did the writing on what appeared in the Lincoln Journal-Star, and I did a little editing.
And you were always good at that, Gil, I will say.
But anyway, it was very important for us to read the handbook first and then go on from there with other sources and going to listen to some of the presentations that were made.
See, and that's the thing. Actual presentations are only going to physically touch a relatively, and they're good, they're great. They've done a good job in scheduling, a lot of them, you all have. But they're only going to reach a very small percentage of people.
Repetition is very important with this, and the reason they say that is it usually takes about 3 or 4 times to really hear something or see it placed in front of you before you truly start taking notice and paying attention. That's why a lot of people's mailboxes have been filling up with information on the Medicare prescription drug benefit.
Generally from some of the companies
Yes.
that are offering their plan.
Yes, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has been sending out letters, as is even our state office for Medicaid, our Health and Human Services Department, for those beneficiaries who have Medicaid and Medicare. So not only is there a lot of written information out there, such as papers and newspaper articles, but also we're having these statewide presentations going on, usually on a continuous basis, it seems like, trying to get the word out there. We need to make sure that everyone listens and pays attention to see what's out there, what's available to them, and how to get help.
Before we go any farther, I want to mention, I know AARP, you'll be seeing their website throughout this show, and Medicare.gov, which are probably places you might have to wait around a little bit to find what you want, but those are really 2 good places. And on there, I think if I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, you could see some times and dates for some of the AARP site for some of the...
Actually, it's our statewide Medicare coalition, and the website is answersforfamilies.org, and
Okay.
it's the number 4 for 4. And actually, it does have a schedule of events going on throughout the state of Nebraska that are held by organizations or entities that are there to give information on Medicare, also even help with enrollment and assistance. But the presentations that we have advertised on our website are by entities who are not selling a drug plan. So it's truly just forthright information on the drug plan. They're not there to sell you anything.
Facilitate. They want to facilitate this process.
Absolutely. Just to get the information out there so that it's correct and accurate and people can get their questions answered.
Now, is it similar to the last time where you can go online, and I'll ask you this, Gil, and then you can back him up. You go online and you can go through this process and plug in your drugs, what drugs you have. And
Well, you can, but we found it rather daunting. I don't have a high-speed line, and with my dial-up, the other day it took me 30 minutes or more to get one fairly simple question answered. We relied pretty heavily. We're members of the 55 Plus program at Bryan LGH in Lincoln, and so they were very helpful in running our prescriptions through the formularies to see if they could find a match. And of course that the computer program goes through the whole range, and so we relied very heavily on that, and we're very grateful for the help.
And we should say that there are a number of companies, and you can probably do the stats in your sleep, that as there were last time, that have plans for Nebraska. So it's not, you do have some choices. You're not down to 1 or 2 and that's it.
Yeah, there are 41 different plans, what we would call standalone prescription drug plans that a beneficiary can choose from. And when you tell beneficiaries that, you really don't always get the reaction that you're anticipating, because you're thinking, that's great, a lot of choice, a lot of competition, this is in your best interest. Exactly,
numbers,
that's
figures,
more,
choices.
and if you're not using the computer, or you're not real sure how to use it, then you're wondering, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to sort through those plans? How do I make a choice? And as Robin was saying, that's what all of these different organizations across the state are helping people do. We're doing that legwork part of it, the comparison, the computer part. If people can just give us the bits of information we need, what are your medicines? What pharmacy do you prefer? With those pieces, we can sort through those plans and do the work for them.
In some of the mailers that have come to people's homes from Medicare, do they give you some Q&A on to just get you familiar with the jargon and I mean, it's scary enough just to figure out what they're talking about.
Sure.
There's this phrase means something and this means something.
Of course, I'm very, deeply attached, it seems like, to this subject, but I'm seeing a lot of it. The Medicare and You book that came out to all of those who are on Medicare in early October Had a lot of information on just the prescription drug plan, a lot of question and answers using the acronyms, also giving their phone number of who to call for assistance. You can even go to your pharmacy and you'll see there that they have informational books or pamphlets to give out to you. AARP has Medicare publications, not only on the prescription drug plan, but specifically even those who have a limited income. If you're looking for information, it is there to be found.
You know, and that's what other thing we should talk about. Those that are an extremely limited income, there's some other nuances that might help them a little more. But before we get into any detail, we are reaching that time of the year, and Amy and I have talked about this, where you think mom and dad, grandma and grandpa have everything. Well, maybe what they need more than anything is a promise from you to help them get through this, or at least ask them, you know, would you like some help, or can we get you some help, or whatever, because there are those that physically maybe would have a hard time even reading all this information. Okay, so I come in and I say, here's my drugs, because that's the important thing. You do have to, it's wise, extremely wise, to know what drugs that you take and what their price on this sort of open market are.
Right. I think that they should have that when they come in. They should have the list of the drugs, exactly what they're taking with the dosage and the quantity amounts. They should also know what price they're currently paying, because with this program on the Medicare.gov website, it will tell you, based on the companies that you're looking at when comparing prices, it'll tell you what the price is for that drug that you would have to pay. Also, you need to know if you're specific to only one pharmacy and you refuse to go elsewhere, or if you're actually open to looking at more than one pharmacy in your area just to get the best price.
In other words, sort of know your limitations going in. If you, let's say, or maybe can't get out of your house very much and somebody delivers, and you might want to say, how many people can deliver to me? Because that might be an issue. So all the things that will affect them in terms of what they can and can't have in a plan. Now, you had a few prescriptions in your family.
Well, my wife had 4, and then recently she had some medical problems, and they've added 3. So this shows you have to be ready for some flexibility in this thing. And I'm on 10 prescription medications. So and then we ran into this term formularies, and that was, you know, daunting in itself. I wasn't familiar with the term, and all it is a list of prescription drugs that a certain company carries and would cover for you. And so it seems to me that some of these things, you know, the jargon becomes a barrier to real communication.
Someone told me that this whole system was sort of a Rube Goldberg concoction. But it is what we have. And so if people, let's say, can't get to one of these things, you know, I had a Spanish teacher that used to say poco a poco, because I was overwhelmed by when I started taking Spanish at age 50. Very, very hard to memorize, which means little by little.
Absolutely.
You can't do what I did in college and cram for this one. You really need to get started. Isn't that
step
kind of
by
the key?
step?
Exactly. And you know, when we work with people, we provide them with some tools that they can use to help make the process a little bit easier. For example, we have a worksheet. It's a 4-page worksheet called the Personal Information Worksheet, which is really just a place for them to put all of the necessary information down on paper. So what are your medications? What's the dose? What's the quantity? What's your preferred pharmacy? Get it all on paper.
But you
in
ask
one
them the
spot.
questions, or you put the spots on there so they know what to fill in, so they don't have to, you know, it's like putting a laundry, you ever try to put a grocery list together, and you just can never think of all the categories of things that you need to do unless you have sort of a list.
It's like a recipe.
And did you have something like that, a worksheet to fill out?
Well, we had our list pretty well prepared, and we had all the prescription, the amounts and everything, so that was a big help. And I really think that people need not be buffaloed by this, because I think it's critically important for them to get the help that is available and to use it also, and not to rush into it, because a lot of the people who are working with this, especially volunteers, they're in a learning process too. And so, and also the program itself is being tweaked a little bit, I think, as we go along. So we're going to see I think a little bit more user-friendly situation arise here as the process goes on.
Well, since you can't answer every phone call in the universe, is there something online, one of these worksheets that you can download and send to your mom, or say, hey, can we talk this through on the phone or anything like that?
Absolutely. People can get them online.
Would they be under the...
We do have one on the AnswersForFamilies.org website.
And we really encourage people to, we'll send that out to the senior and say, fill it out, give it to your son or your daughter or your grandchild. And it tells them on there, it has the website, the Medicare website, where they need to go to do the comparison of the different plans. So, it really makes it easy for them if you can tell them, all you need to do is fill this out. Your kids can take it from there. If they use
and then
the
maybe
computer,
present 3 to you so that you can have some sort of input into the final
Absolutely.
decision, which I think is important. Not to just, that it won't become demystified if you can't actually, to the best of your ability, get involved. Wouldn't you say that, Gil? I mean,
well, yeah.
So you have a sense of really what you got.
Two professional men in Lincoln who are very bright guys. They're retired, and they are both going to seek help on this. So I think every citizen needs to realize that there's nothing demeaning about having to ask for some help. And these men, held very responsible positions, and it would be unusual for them not to be able to cope with almost anything that came up. But they're choosing to get some help.
Are churches and things like that where people, elders, institutions that elders trust, besides say AARP or VIE in Omaha, your organization, the 55 plus, whatever, 55 at the hospital down there, are there other places that people are going to be in where they will be kind of, hey, have you done this yet? Can we help you?
I know in Omaha, lots of different organizations have taken an interest in it. A large organization here that works with local congregations and churches, Omaha Together One Community, which is a lot of different churches. They're interested, and their members have all gone through training now to learn more about it so they can go back to their own parishes and congregations and try to figure out what can we do to help our parishioners. So that's just one example, but we've had in Omaha alone, we've had many, many different groups want to get involved and help out.
Is there concern about the rural areas where, people are just fewer and farther between, and organizations may be there, but the distance and the time is a problem?
We're seeing that, but actually the flip side to that is we're truly seeing some smaller communities come together through the coalitions to band together and do these type of outreach events as a group and supporting their own community. We're seeing county extension offices doing this. We're seeing hospitals. We're seeing mayor's office was in one that was working with it. Just a lot of different outlets, nursing homes, assisted living centers. They are getting their people involved, getting with the community sponsors and putting this on together.
So that gives me the feeling that people know this is going to happen, and that they need to have resources available for and not just because they're seniors, but because this is a tough nut to crack, really.
Absolutely.
For the first time.
It's almost like taxes. I don't do my own, and it's a good thing I don't. And that might be the same case that you would want to compare this to with the Medicare prescription drug plan. Go out and find yourself a partner, somebody who can connect you through to that internet to do the runoff of the programs and hand it back to you. Gil, I know that I felt that the printout looked very nice when it came from the computer with what your options are, the drugs that they cover, and that the prices that they're offering. And it was very easily readable, including what your out-of-pocket drug costs would be for the entire year. So it's something that right away you can see whether or not you'd be getting a savings. I'm sure Amy could go on and on with the stories of the runs that we've done for people looking at what their drugs would cost through a drug plan.
In other words, running them through that process
trying
in the
the
computer.
system, yeah. And again, the stories that we're getting back are so people are so pleased with the discounts that they can get. I know one example I have is a man who spends $130 a month, and you don't really think that that's much when you're looking at drug costs, because we have people who have maybe up to 25 drugs a month that they're taking. But this one example I had is a man was on $130 a month in drug coverage. Well, looking at his case scenario and based on his income, we could bring that down to $9 a month. So again, just even the littlest bit amount of money, go out there and
That's
try
a lot of money.
Absolutely.
That's a fortune, depending. I mean, nobody wants to pay too much anyway. But
Exactly.
So okay, now let's talk about some of the peculiarities of this Plan D. There's a thing called a gap, and we don't want to make people crazy, but roughly explain what Congress was trying to do here, if you can, into why this sort of odd little configuration of when you're covered, when you're not covered, when you're covered only in part.
When they put this together, the plan together, Congress came up with what was considered a standard benefit. So it outlined what the package should look like at least. And so when it put it together, they were saying for a prescription drug plan to participate, the plan should look like where there's at least a first $250 deductible that a beneficiary would have to pay before that they would get their drugs covered. Then after the $250 amount was paid, there would be a 75-25 split in the drug costs between $250 up to $2,000.
75 for the plan provider and
Yes.
25% for the
beneficiary would pay 25%, right. Then after that, we got into the donut hole area, and that is where the beneficiary would have to pay for all of their drugs out of their pocket from the amount of $2,250 up to $5,100. And then from that point on, your drugs were covered at 95% while you had to pay the remaining 5%. Again, that's what they call the standard benefit. But what's been nice we've noticed in Nebraska is with all those 41 plans that have come out, we're only seeing not very many have that huge of a donut hole gap, and in fact, 23 of those plans start giving you first dollar coverage. So immediately in January 1, if you have your prescription drug plan in hand and you walk to the window at the pharmacy, you can automatically start getting a savings based on the plan that you sign up for if they have that type of coverage.
Now we should mention that there is, you're paying a premium every month. This is like a little mini insurance plan, isn't that right?
Exactly, yeah, just like your homeowners, your auto insurance, it's an insurance policy.
So, and what are they running per month, roughly?
Well, they range, you know, and
Depending on your...
that, you know, people wonder about that and they don't quite understand, because when they look at their Medicare and You handbook, they'll see a plan that's as low as $1.87 all the way up to a plan that's $99.90.
A month?
Exactly, per month. And they're wondering, okay, what is this? You know, we've been hearing for the past probably 18 months or so, $37 a month, and it was $35 a month. And people have been hearing those numbers, and so they're not understanding, why am I going to pay more or less than that? And when Robin's talking about that standard benefit, that's where we start talking about sort of, you know, I tell people, think of that as if it were an example. This is what Medicare said.
Yeah.
Your plans need to be at least as good as this example. And under that example benefit, you would pay, you know, $32 a month premium. Some will be a lot lower, some will be a lot higher. But you're going to get, you know, different
and it would
coverage
depend
depending
on what, and then the configuration might be a little different of those numbers.
Yes, that's why it is so important to shop. Compare these plans based on the drugs you're taking and the pharmacy you want to use to see who has the best option. It's well worth your time, well worth your fortune that you could be getting back in your dimes and nickels from saving on this plan.
Okay, Gail, you guys haven't, in the Savory household, have not settled for sure.
My wife has settled on one because it seems to match up with the Medigap program that she's on, and so
So she
I think
has
she'll
her
stick
own
with-
program
Yeah,
that she's
and hers
paying
will
on.
be separate from mine, and our Medigap insurance is separate now,
Right.
and we're still looking for what's going to be most beneficial to me. So that search goes on. One thing I think we ought to consider this, that that we have every congressman sit down and work with one of the constituents for a day to see just what they've brought about by setting this program in motion. But that aside, I mean, it's obviously going to be a tremendous benefit. and it'll be fine-tuned, and I think we'll see changes that will be will tend to simplify this as time goes on. But it's just critically important for people to make use of it.
And it's critically important that they really, if they haven't given any thought to it, to do it as soon as possible, to get in the program. This is a program that starts January 1, correct? So
It does start January 1.
And if you, in order to be involved, be able to have your card and do your particular program January 1, when do you have to be signed up for it?
As long as you're signed up by December 31st, they're telling you can have drug coverage effective January 1st. We are in what's called now an open enrollment period, so anybody could have signed up for this Medicare prescription drug plan between November 15th all the way through May 15th. So it's not critical that they're up and running by January 1st, having their prescription drug plan
I'm
in
getting
place.
to this part.
Okay.
It is critical, however, most likely critical for them that they have this in place by that May 15th deadline.
That's right. There are a couple of different categories of people that we are concerned about that they do get signed up, and they get signed up before the 1st of January. And that would be those people who are eligible for the low-income subsidy, or even those who are on Medicaid. There's two different categories. And
we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But it would be to their benefit to
absolutely to their benefit. That way they won't see any lapse in coverage, and that they'll have a program in place. The other clientele that we would look for to get signed up right away are those who do have drug coverage over the $5,000 a year mark. And the reason being is, since they're spending that money out of their pocket, let's immediately have it start going towards a plan so they can get that catastrophic coverage, or that 95% of their drugs covered when they do reach that $5,000 limit.
Yeah, I mean, an example of that might be someone that's on anti-rejection drugs that cost an arm and a leg, had a transplant or something like that. That would be something you know, do not pass go, do not collect $100, just go. Okay, now the May 15th thing is a magical, mystical day, because what happens if you are not signed up for a plan by that time?
Well, if they don't sign up by that time, their next opportunity to actually sign up won't be until the end of the year. Each year, beginning at the end of 2006, between November 15th and December 31st, will be an annual general enrollment period. So if they miss that May 15th, their next opportunity to sign up will not be until the end of the year, with coverage beginning January of the following year. At that point then, they have missed 7 months, because they've missed June through the end of the year.
And there's a penalty.
And there is a 1% penalty that is cumulative for every month that they missed. So if they miss May 15th of next year, even if they decide in July or October that they want to sign up, can't sign up till the end of the year, and they're automatically going to pay a 7% premium penalty every month for the rest of their life. Now that 7% is based on the national average premium. So even if they choose one of the cheap, $2 plans, their penalty is based on the national average, which right now is $32.20.
2%
of whatever plan they pick. It's of the national average of all of the plans.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. That is, I'm thinking that we probably are running out of time, so we're going to have to end the show. I do want to tell you that there is hope at the end of the tunnel, right?
It's worth looking into. It's not for everybody. Those who have TRICARE or VA benefits, or some with credible coverage, but it is something to look into.
Okay, I want to thank you all for joining us. Just remember, get with it, and help your relatives, and thank you, and join us next week.
The 9th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Sunday at 5 p.m.